Hey guys, welcome to my YouTube series where we will be going over LeetCode 150. So hopefully you guys follow along through the whole journey as well as learn a lot of things. So today we will be starting with contains duplicates. It's a easy LeetCode question. So hopefully you guys can follow along and learn something. And before we do get started, I want to make sure that you guys have these prerequisites. I really hope you guys know Python, you guys know some data structures and algorithms, as well as learned how to build some logic, some intuition, which will be the first thing we go over, right? So before we do that, let's read the question and really try to understand what it's asking. It should be simple, nothing crazy. So contains duplicates, right? It's an easily coded question, and what is it asking? Given an integer array called nums, return true if any value appears at least twice in the array, and return false if every element is distinct, right? So, what is it asking? It's essentially just asking us, hey, I'm going to give you guys an array. I'm going to give you an array. Let's say this is our array, and I just want you to return true if there is two elements that are the same in the array, right? That are the same in the array. And if there is no element that is the same, or if there are no elements that are the same, just return false. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. So, you got two examples, one returning true, where, we can see that one and one. This is the reason why it's being returned true, because one appears twice in the array, and in this case, there is no number that appears twice. 1, 2, 3, 4, so return false. Now my question to you is intuition. What is the first thing that you think of when you read this question? What solution or idea can you get out from this question or derive from this question? I'll give you 2 more seconds. Okay, okay. So now, let's go here. Let's go here. What if I told you? What if I told you the first thing that I thought of doing is sorting. Let's sort the array. So what is 1, 2, 3, 1? What if we sort it? 1, 1, 2, 3. Now our problem becomes way more simple, right? Our problem becomes way more simple. And why is that the case? Why is our problem simple? The reason is because we can just iterate over the array. We can simply just iterate over the array. And if we find a duplicate, we return true. We return true. But but if we don't find a duplicate and the array is sorted, we go over the array once again, right? We return false. It's as simple as that. We just iterate over the array. If it's sorted, we return true. If the value ahead of it, or the value next to it, it equals the same as our current value, we return true. Otherwise, just return false, right? But I'm gonna ask you guys, and I want you guys to pay attention. What is the issue with this? What is the issue with this? So the issue here is the time complexity, right? Time complexity. What is the time complexity of the solution? What is the time complexity of the solution? So, if you guys know Python or any language per se, and in this case, we are assuming that we will be using a built-in method called dot sort or built-in function. So we'll just do nums. And in this case, this is What is the time complexity of this? O of n log n. O of n log n. Now, my question for you is, can you do better than this? And every interviewer will ask you the same question. Can you do better than this? Well, what if I told you you can? Now, let's go back to intuition. Intuition. But to develop intuition, you need to know your fundamentals. Fundamentals. And this is what ties things up. This is what I mean by you should know Python and know DSA. You should know Python and know DSA. So, given that you practice these two things already, you know, you know something called a data structure. Data structure. Now let's use this to our advantage. Can we think of a data structure or algorithm or algorithm that can do better time complexity than this? That can do a better time complexity than this. I'll give you 3 seconds. And I really, really want you guys to follow along with me and really try whenever I tell you guys, because when you just watch a video, and this is what I used to do when I first started, when you just watch a video, you just follow blindly thinking, hey, I understand the solution. And the next day, you forget everything because your brain thinks it learned something when it really didn't. It's better to learn from doing. So please, please think through when I do ask you guys. And you should be thinking, trying this, practicing on your own right after the video. So, in case you haven't figured it out already, we can use something called a set. A set. Now, why do I say a set? Well, 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 we know that a set, right? A set cannot, I just did not equal to, cannot contain duplicate, right? It cannot contain duplicates, right? So, it's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. We can just use a set to put the elements in the array, and once we see that there is a duplicate, we just return false. It's really as simple as that. So let's say 1, 3, 2, 3. Let's say this is our array, and we're iterating over array, right? We're iterating over everything, and we also have our set. I'll call our set container. We have our container. As we iterate through one, right? As we iterate through one. So now our first element is 1, right? The first thing we're gonna do is check is 1 in our container. Is 1 in our container, right? Is 1 in our container. Well, our container is empty. So 1 is not in our container. So what happens? We just move on to the next element, right? We move on to the next element. But before we do that, we should probably add 1 to our container, right? Let's add 1 to our container. Let's add 1 to our container. And now we're at 3. Now we're at 3, right? Now, is 3 in our container? No, it's not. Only 1 is in our container or our set. So, what do? The same thing. We just add 3. We just add 3. And then, what do? We move on to the next element, which is 2. Now, does 2 exist in our container? Well, we only have 1 and we have 3. Well, 2 does not exist in our container. So we do the same thing. We add 2 and we add 2, right? And then we move on to what we call 3, right? We move on to, we finished 2, now we're at 3. Now, does 3 exist in our container? Oh, wait, 3 does exist in our container because we added it before. Wow, okay. Okay, now since it does exist in our container, we just automatically return true because we know that it contains duplicate. Automatically return true, right? But what if this was our array? 1, 3, 2, 4. What if this was our array? Well, we would do the same thing. We would do the same thing. We would have a container. We would have a container, right? And we'll iterate, and then every time we iterate, so 1, 3, 2, 4, we would add all these elements, right? But as we're going through these, like say I'm at 1, does 1 exist? Well, the first time it wouldn't exist. Does 3 exist? It wouldn't exist, so we would have added 3. Does 2 exist? It wouldn't have, so we would have added 2. We would have added 4, and then we would have exited out of our loop. And there's no duplicate, so we would just automatically exit out and return false. We would just return false. And that's as simple as that. Now, can you tell me the time and space? Well, let me just make this a little bit clear. Can you tell me the time and space complexity of this? I'll give you a few seconds. So what are we doing? We're essentially iterating through the array once, right? And we're iterating through the array once. This is our nums. We're iterating it through it once. So that's the only time we really iterate, right? So that's a linear time solution, right? That's as simple as that. It's a linear time solution, which is O of n, O of n. And for space, do we use anything or is it constant? Let's see. Let's see. Oh, wait, we use a set, right? We use a set called container. And at most, it holds O of n. O, it holds the number of elements in our nums array, right? At most. So what is that? That's also linear, right? Because we use the set. And it's as simple as that. So now that we know that, let's get right into the code. So what is the first thing that we do? We initialize our container, which is a set in Python, right? We use a set. Um, our set will hold. What will it hold? Hold values of nums, right? So now we'll just iterate over nums. For num and nums, right? What do we do? For every number in nums, right? 1, 2, 3, 1. What are we doing? Well, the first thing we're checking is if num and container. If the current number is in the container, right? Well, what do we do? What did we do when we saw that? When we saw that 3 was in our container, what do we do? What did we do? We just automatically return true. Return true, right? We just return true because it contains duplicates. But if that's not the case, which this won't execute the first time we go, what will happen? We're at 1, right? This is the first time. We would just add the element, right, to our container. So container dot add num. Container dot add num. And that should be it, right? It's as simple as that. But what am I missing? Well, I'm missing the false. I'm missing the false. So once we exited out of our loop, as I told you guys before, we didn't find any true values or true elements. Or sorry, we didn't find any duplicates that would return true. we would just exit out of our loop and just return false. Return false. And hopefully this works. And it's as simple as that. It passes all test cases, and this should work. And thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you guys watch again for the next video. Like and subscribe to be in the loop, and we'll be going over all the questions, and hopefully you guys learned something and enjoyed. Please practice right after this video.